name's Karen Fire, and welcome back to Conan Exiles. Happy 2022! So 2021 was a wild year for Conan Exiles. We had the full release of the Isle of Siptah. It came to official release on all platforms. They also started going down a route of lore, and they displayed much more of this via the new map and the orbs at the end of the Elder Vaults. And of course you had the tower in the middle, tentacles coming from the sky, and all sorts that you had in early stages of the game as well, where we had these surges appearing all over random places like portals in the sky, and all sorts of things with that. And then later on they touched upon the Grave Matters subject, which presented some more interesting things. So I'm going to be diving into that a bit today. What Conan Exiles has in store for us in the future. What is 3.0? What could it be? We're going to talk about it today in this video. Sorcery. It's something everybody has been crying for and wanting in the game for years. It's something they mention in lore pretty often, and they go over it quite a lot. The Isle of Siptah wasn't shy to sorcery, even via early access. There was a big sky tentacles, the magic in the tower, creating deadly storms and spawning deadly creatures. Grave Matters comes along at Christmas time, and once again spawns some more horrifying undead, and a challenger immune to attacks unless you are to destroy the totems, thus releasing a necromancer and making them drop some of their gear, which seems to be quite powerful. I mean, they even drop you a potion that's like a trick or treat that can give you great stats or really horrible sickness. They even give you old furniture, which we have no idea where this has come from, and they also are wearing strange cult-like robes that seem to give the symbolism of Set, as they have many snakes across them. However, in some of the notes coming up in the teasers before this event started, they did mention that this had like nothing to do with wolfmen or, snake men. There's like no markings, no signs of those two. So what could it be? Could this be something else in play? Who knows? That question was never really answered. And there was some more kind of worrying markings on these pieces of paper that I didn't really go over back in the, early December. So there is this particular piece of paper that was encrypted and then de-encrypted by one of the Conan Exiles handles on Twitter named Andy, who made this kind of puzzle for us, which was really fun. However, one of the bits I really noticed on here was like the mentions of grand work. The note reads, "Before I can complete my grand work, I need capable talent. I need you. Raise the pillars, summon the resting ones. They cannot be failed. Succeed and you shall receive gifts beyond your wildest imaginations." And basically, if you fail or you die in this life, you have to do it the next life. You can't fail, otherwise you die either way. So that's pretty much what it is about. But what I notice in this bit here is that the pillars are not the end of it, because he says, "Before I can complete my grand work," meaning this necromancy event is not the grand work. So there is grand work, something to do with grand work that is not yet presented to us and we haven't seen yet. Because this, in that phrasing, it doesn't mean that this event is the grand work we're speaking of. We're working on something to aid the grand work of this person's note. Who could this be, Who is asking us to do these things? It's becoming obvious though it's something to do with something dark, like necromancy. I mean, if you have destroyed the totems in the event, you'll sometimes notice that they have blood on the inside of the artwork images. Whether this is intentional or not, I do not know, but when you do crack them, you'll see blood inside of the actual mesh of the broken bits of the pillar, which is really curious why the totem is bleeding. They also spew out a lot of corruption, which usually hand in hand goes with the sorcery anyway. So what is this corrupt magic they're perhaps working on? Why are these pillars being raised? Where are these necromancers coming from, and all sorts? Sorcery is definitely becoming more prominent. Now, there are elements in the game that already show sorcery, of course. You see it with the Witch Queen's dungeon, with her green magic and her possession of the statues. And you also see inside the volcano is also figments of sorcery, and also you'll see other strange places. Ones you'll be really familiar with is obelisks, what is to do with that kind of strange tech. And they also talk about lore a lot, the sorcery in lore quite often. So Grave Matters kind of pushes this a little bit more, shows the shields and the necromancy magic, why the totems bleed, etc. It gives you a little bit more. Now, in an interesting interview with Pixel Cave, I'll link it down in the description down below, he talked to the devs about what might be coming up in the future. Now, they did speak about maybe some more themed events, something about booze events, camps, fighting camps, wilderness muscle dudes and NPC pinatas. Take that with a grain of salt because, those things might not be a thing in the future, but they might be. Their ideas that have been talked about. They've also talked about testing wild surges. They may come back in the future. Maybe, but they have been testing them. It's not 100%, but it could be a thing that comes back in the future. So again, that's something, something magic spawns out like a bunch of people wherever on the map. Crazy stuff, right? They also talked about spontaneous NPC events maybe becoming more a thing in the future as well, that we might be able to expect in the new year. And they're also planning on putting events on both of their maps, so you can expect more events in the future. Perhaps we'll have an event closer to the time, maybe in Easter or something like that, that may give us some more answers on what this kind of grand work is they're talking about. Or maybe we'll see something sooner. Or maybe we'll see what 3.0 actually is, who knows. But there's a lot of questions. They've definitely built up some amp here on what it could be. I mean, there's even a whole forum thread by Jimbo talking about what this could be and what 3.0 could be, and if it is sorcery or not, who knows. But it's crazy. There's a lot on it. There's a lot of excitement for it. Who knows what to expect. Also, a really nice thing they're putting in the future for this year, modders will be able to run and make custom events in 3.0 or later on. Now, some people are already doing this, like the Savage Wilds team. They're doing really cool stuff with their own custom events. You can do things that require like killing a certain amount of things or collecting or things like that, and that's a really cool way they're already doing it. But apparently modders will be able to do something more custom with this in the future, which would be really, really awesome, because they're going to provide those kind of models and files or whatever to them so they can play with it in the future dev kit. They also said they are looking at more active storytelling on the Exiled Lands in the future. So we could definitely see some more lore things, maybe some more events like we saw at Christmas and stuff like that in the new year. And of course, with any of these new events, they did reiterate in their interview with Pixel Cave that they will make sure server owners can turn on and off this future event and this feature. So you can do whatever you like if you're a server owner. If you don't like it, then you can always switch it off. I found it really interesting as well. The Conan Twitter handle went over the puzzle events again once everything was complete. They did like a whole thread talking about it, revealing these kind of messages in this piece of paper in front of you right here, mentioning the full text and what it's actually about. But again, they were making hints towards sorcery or whatever else. And they even linked a thread speculating what was in 3.0 in the future or more sorcery speculation. Kind of interesting that they're linking those kind of things, right? Of course, this could be all completely wrong. I might be just talking out of my bum here, but, they are like hinting a lot towards this kind of thing, that something to do with necromancy may be more prevalent in the future, or maybe some kind of sorcery, or maybe we're being kind of hopeful. But they are definitely showing more of that side of Conan, which is kind of interesting to see. If you're not that deep into Conan's lore holes though, Jimbo from the Sorcery Speculation Mega Thread kind of helps us explain things a little bit more. So definitely check that out. That will be in the link in the description down below as well. But he kind of talks about the magic of the Hyborian Age settings, so you can actually see what goes on here. A lot has to do with going back to the books as well, and things like that. So he talks about no one is born with magical powers, at least not in the conventional sense. Conan, for example, was born and lived as a blood and flesh man. There are no argument many of his deeds were aided by the supernatural or divine intervention. He mentions how sorcery is something that you have to obtain, and it's not something that is internal and not something you're born with. You have to get it by, capturing aliens and siphoning their energy, or using artifacts and stuff like that, like Thothomon did when he wielded the legendary serpent ring of Set to do his evil magic, the arch demon snake god himself. So all those kind of things are sourced from exterior powers and not from within. So that's kind of how magic would work in Conan. So perhaps in the future, if we want to do magic, we need to go and get something to do magic. Or, kill people like I suppose you could actually, it could work with a religion rework. This is totally speculatory, just want you to know, but they could do something with necromancy that also ties into the religions where you could kill, like, beings or stuff like we do now, and we source the, like, stuff out of them with our little dagger or something. So you go up to, going up to someone with a Takedo dagger and you stab them and you get this, like, little white bottle of liquid, this silver, and then you put it in the bench and you make something out of that. Perhaps we could be doing something often like that would also help us use sorcery, but for the different religions. Perhaps we could be doing something like that in the future for sorcery. That would work out pretty well, actually, because we wouldn't be getting our power, we would be getting our power from a mysterious source by doing that. I mean, we already technically are kind of being little necromancers ourselves, just in less of a magical sense, but a more materialistic sense. They also talk about great power coming at a great cost, so I'm wondering perhaps there will be a great cost for this also, whether this comes in the form of you have to farm a lot of these things for it, like you would go and farm the religious items a lot to make items in the game already, and perhaps it might be something to do with that, but who knows, it could be something relevant to that, it could be something completely different, and I'm just spewing out, just thoughts and random stuff. But let me know what you guys think, what 3.0 could be. I definitely think it will have something to do with it that's going to be, more fantasy, something sorcerous. Maybe they're reworking an entire system like religions. They have mentioned in the past in streams and stuff like that. That is a thought that they want to do, like reworking the religion system. They've also gone over reworking the food system, but I don't think it's going to be about food, because I don't think they would try and generate this amount of mystery if it was going to be just food. That'd be a little weird, unless it's something you have to do super special stuff with food, kind of things like that. But I just thought it was interesting to mention, all of that good stuff. The big thread of them talking about what they were doing more in detail with the pieces of notes and paper they found was also really interesting. I found, like, one of the images Andy shared, which I mistakenly labelled as a Hyborian rag. It is in fact not one. I'm sorry, Andy. Sorry, but not sorry. He shared this image of this piece of paper where these people had marked out what the actual Grave Matters event kind of looked like. And I thought it was interesting that this was a thing, because he did mention things about it being white ink, these white splodges on here. Now, if you go back into the study of white ink, it's something that you would only get, like, high stature people really using. I mean, white pigment is one of the oldest pigments, but it was highly controlled because of the toxicity of it, because it has certain, like, metals in it that is quite damaging. So it would have been quite expensive, and also a challenging job to make it by a chemist, since the health consequences, and they have to think about how the product behaves and ages. So I would have thought the people making these notes would have had to be someone high in importance, rankings, or stature. So you have some higher up people also looking into the necromancy and stuff, which is kind of interesting, and that would definitely symbolize it. And they definitely have nothing to do with, like, the fishy stuff. They're more, knightly, I suppose you could say, exploratory, and trying to find out, like, what are these dark doings going on and stuff like that. You even have, like, the symbol mark of the Ranger class logo from Age of Conan he goes over. So that's more of a, I suppose you'd say more of a posh seal to have on a piece of paper. And you even get other seals, like special pieces of paper with marks on them that you wouldn't have from just someone common. You would have these kind of symbols or paper from someone that is more high and rich and stuff. So you gotta wonder why these explorers or people are looking into the necromancy also, and what that has to do with that. So I thought that was kind of interesting to think about. I could definitely say in 3.0 though, you definitely probably need to expect some new event style things. We definitely are going to expect 3.0 coming out in the next year, hopefully. I imagine it would, because we're on 2.7 now. So we either go to a bug fix of 2.8, 2.9, and then we eventually have to hit 3.0, which I imagine will come out in the year coming up here, so 2022. So we get to expect new events. They seemed really keen on that kind of idea in the interview. So kind of expect those things perhaps, or maybe better ways to interact with NPCs. rather than them just being like walk around flesh bags that you just kill for items and stuff like that and use. They want them to be maybe more interactive. Perhaps they're going to do some more lore things like they mentioned in that interview as well, that you could see in the future. Very interesting. I bet we're going to see something to do with the grand work as well. That was mentioned in the note. What is this grand work? Why is this necromancy like feeding into the grand work? What are we helping be made? What are we helping achieve? You know, who are we helping? You know, and who is threatening our lives kind of with this kind of thing. Interesting stuff, right? So perhaps we'll find that out. And yeah, 3.0 is going to be really exciting. I do hope it's something perhaps necromancy or sorcery related, because that would at this point make quite a lot of sense with all the messages going around. But we'll find out. I'm usually, you know, happy with what they give us and release. It's usually interesting, and everybody loves some new content to the game, you know. So I'm looking forward to what they release. Let me know what you think 3.0 could probably be in the future. And yeah, that's all I have to say today. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.